It's the teller drawer. Real talk, real money, real people.
Credit unions were started by communities.
The standpoint of just being a credit union, it's kind of our job to go beyond.
Listening to the community. What are the needs?
CSE can come in and they can do financial literacy.
They're going to get that balance. They're going to get that purchase amount.
If you reach out to us, we'll help you.
The big myth is that it's always banks beat credit union.
It takes a lot of A's to get to a D, to get to a B.
Welcome, everybody. We are excited to be here with you guys. We have a great episode today as we talk about CSE, where it came from, where it's going, this wonderful credit union. I happen to be a member. My name is Lucas Tyndale, and I'm so excited to be a part of this podcast because I represent you. I represent the people who have questions, the people who are curious to know more. I'm learning so much just being around these wonderful people who know more about the inside. I'm the outside, but I'm coming in, learning more each and every day here with Tim as we host this great thing. And Tim brings great friends on to talk about all the wonderful things that are going on at CSE. How you doing today, Tim?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm wonderful, excited, and we have a friend here today. He's a regular here, and will be and is and will always be. I hope he won't be an every week regular for some reason, but he won't be a stranger. I like that. I like
absolutely. And you're right. This is Justin with us today to kind of kick off this podcast. Justin's our community outreach coordinator, and who better to be around for a CSE podcast about community and credit unions than the community credit union guys.
Perfect.
So yeah, you're right. We're going to talk today about CSE. So we're kicking off this podcast with you, and the goal of it is to tell people who we are. Certainly people have become familiar around the Canton and Stark County area with CSE, who we are as a quote unquote bank, but there's so much more to that story. Where did we come from? Why are we here? What do we do that sets us apart? So we're going to start telling people about that in a different way, and what better way than a podcast. So
I love it. And I appreciate you guys trusting us here at Lucas Live Media to partner with you guys, and then asking me to come and be a host as well, because we produce podcasts here. I also host podcasts, but to be a host and as a member of this community, to also just have that, I think when you asked me, you said, I do have that genuine curiosity that people have. And you guys wanted that. You said it would be good for people to hear someone who has a genuine curiosity to ask those questions, so that this podcast has that genuine piece where there may be people out there who are listening, thinking what I'm thinking and saying, wait, what is that? What do you mean? Yeah. It started where, or what happened there? So I'm really excited about this journey with you guys. Yeah.
And I love how you say you're for the people or of the people, but so are we at the credit union. But at the same time, there's times when we put our credit union hat on, and it's hard to get past certain things that, why do you do things a certain way? Well, because we have to.
Yeah.
Right.
But why?
Yeah.
There's more to the story. So
me and Tim being at the credit union for over a decade, and me over a decade, you 15 years?
15, 16.
Sometimes it's hard for us to think, what don't people know about credit unions?
Yeah.
So we're glad to do the podcast to kind of tell people what they need to know, and you kind of pull out of us like, I never knew that.
Yeah.
So,
pull the nuggets, and we'll do what we can with it. So
I look forward to it. I look and learning the differences between banks and credit unions. You're saying banking with a credit union, but there's differences. Just throughout this season, I look forward to learning more about fraud and credit and a lot of things that intimidate people, I think, about banking overall. I think sometimes people think banking is a game for the wealthy, and the rest of us are just transactionally coming in, hoping we have enough in our account not to get a bunch of fees or go overdraft, or it can be intimidating. It can be embarrassing sometimes. It's like a very humbling thing. You go in there and these people can see you unclothed in a sense and see that you don't have all the money in the world, and it's tough. Your own children may not see that. Your spouse may not always know where your account is at, but this person across the teller desk can look in there and see, you're down to very little, and that can be intimidating. But with the relationships that you guys build with the community and your desire not to make people feel like that, but to know that you're their partner and that you're like family to them who actually cares about them, I think set you guys apart and makes it really special. So
especially as a banking institution, and I use the word banking again as a verb, because people don't necessarily know the differences between a bank and a credit union. We'll talk about that for sure later in the season. But that's where it really starts for us. Is we're not a bank, we're a credit union. Well, what does that mean? Because from an outsider's perspective, I pull into the parking lot and, well, yeah, this looks like a duck. It quacks like a duck. I go in, I cash my check, make a deposit, make a withdrawal, whatever. It's got to be a bank, right? Well, yeah, we operate very similarly, but there's a lot of core differences to that. So if it's all right with you, we'll just get into it.
Yeah, let's go.
We're actually going to turn back the hands of time and go back to the 1930s.
Okay.
So what was going on in the 30s? If anybody knows much about history, even if you don't, we'll tell you. The 30s was tough for a lot of people because we were coming out of the Great Depression. And I don't want to spend too much time on this, but out of the Great Depression, the world lost its sense of trust in banks because, well, I had all my money in my bank today, and then tomorrow it was gone, literally gone. Stock market crashed, everything
banks
happened.
Closed. People had their money in banks, and banks went bankrupt.
Right,
in a sense.
Exactly, that's exactly what happened.
Disappeared.
And then in 1934, as part of the recovery of or from the Great Depression, FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt,
right?
It's a mouthful. FDR was the president of the United States, signed a piece of legislation that has since become known as the Credit Union Act. And that allowed, at the time, credit unions were like this new thing where people could put their money together and basically be an alternative to banks. By that, it was, well, I've fallen on hard times. I need some money. Can you help me out? Well, these people put together their money in a cooperating way, which is now known as a cooperative, and then started helping people. So fast forward 1938, a couple years later, a bunch of Canton school teachers in the halls of McKinley High School down at, you knew the
800
address.
Market Avenue North. I used to work in that building.
Stark County Library.
McKinley Healthcare now.
Yeah.
Right across from the Stark County Library on Market Avenue. 14 teachers put their money together and started CSE Federal, Canton School Employees Federal Credit Union. Now we just do business as CSE, but we're still officially Canton School Employees.
That's amazing.
Federal Credit Union. So that was 1938. And then we're going to skip some decades. There's been a lot that has happened through the years.
I think that's
We'd be here all
incredible.
day.
I do think it's incredible. Number one, as a Canton McKinley graduate, my parents went to the old McKinley High School. I worked at McKinley Early Childhood Center, which started in the old McKinley High School. McKinley Healthcare Center is in there. There's been a lot of different businesses in there still to this day. That building still stands. Once upon a time, there was like horse trails went around that building before school buses did, and horses went down Market Avenue. I mean, this has been there. Trolleys went down that street, and now it's our city, is there. And inside that school, teachers literally started this thing that's a part of our community, still serving our community. I think that is an important story. It's really interesting.
So it's important to know before you know where you're going, you got to know where you've been.
Absolutely.
So again, I don't want to bore you with what happened in the 40s and 50s and 60s because it was just average, ordinary people helping average, ordinary people. And along the way, we slowly grew, and we're still for a long time Educators Credit Union, focused on educators. And then in 2003, we were granted by the National Credit Union Administration, which is basically like FDIC. So we have the NCUA. Banks have the FDIC.
FDIC is
Federal Depository Insurance Company. I don't know.
Something like that.
I honestly don't know.
Okay, FDIC, but it's something. It's an insurance.
It's basically, regulators and insurance for banks.
For banks. That says
we have the NCUA, which is regulators and insurance for credit unions, saying if you deposit your money here, it's safe, sound, and insured up to.
So much, 250,000, something like that was. So at a bank where banks went bankrupt after the Great Depression or during the Great Depression, stock market crash, and people went to the bank. There was a run on the banks. People went to get their money out.
Exactly.
And the banks were like, we're out of money. We don't have it. The federal government created FDIC, and they said basically up to 200,000, 250, it probably went up over years, 250,000 or something. You are guaranteed to at least get that much money out of our bank, right? So for banks, it's FDIC, and for you guys, it's
the NCUA, National Credit Union Administration.
Got it. Okay.
And then we have an additional insurance on top of that. So members at CSE have money insured up to $500,000 per member per account. So,
and there's a lot of members who may not have $500,000, so they're good.
And we certainly have some members that have that kind of money on deposit with us, but most of our members are just average, everyday people that
they're safe.
You
modest
sure, you might modest means exactly. I don't want to put anybody in a box.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
But if something goes wrong, the stock market crashes, most people are going to be able to get every penny they own,
Exactly.
and it'll be safe, and or can leave it in there. They don't have to come take it out and panic because it is safe there.
Yeah, to this day, the NCUA has been around since 1934, and nobody has ever lost a penny of money from a federally insured credit union,
awesome.
at least for any reason outside of your own doing.
Right.
You fell victim to fraud or scams, or
Yeah.
you just went bad on your accounts.
Right.
But stuff like that has happened, but nobody's ever lost money because of credit
Like a
union went out of
depression
business.
type of
Exactly.
situation. Yep.
So that's certainly says something about credit unions in general and us. So there's an example of that. Looks like a duck, quacks like a duck. Yeah, your money is safe at a credit union just like it's safe at a bank.
Right.
But 2003, CSE moved on from being just an educator's credit union to a community credit union. So as long as you lived, worked, worshiped, did something, existed in Stark County and could prove that with a ID or a pay stub or something, you could belong to CSE Federal Credit Union. We changed our name from, well, I guess we didn't change our name, but we shortened our name to make it a little more simple. So Canton School employees turned into CSE Federal Credit Union, and anybody can join. As long as you've got $5 to open your account, you can come and do your banking at CSE Federal Credit Union. With that, we knew that Canton at the time, there was a lot of stuff going on. You know, certainly Republic Steel started to have their issues. Industries started to really hurt or pull out of Canton.
Yeah.
And we know that Canton went through some hard times.
That's a great point.
Members and our community, individuals went through hard times.
That's a great point.
And they're still kind of having some
Yeah,
difficulty.
wow,
I don't know
good
that we've
point.
ever really
During those
covered from
times.
that.
Yeah.
But we saw that. We experienced that as individuals at a credit union, with people coming in to basically do their banking, knowing that things are hard. So,
and I think in 2003, one of the most important pieces was just making the community aware that we had these affordable financial products.
Yeah.
You know, we went from an educator's credit union to now we can service the community. So in 2003, there probably was a big push to make sure everyone knew about CSE.
Right.
yeah.
And
we were a small credit union at that time. I don't have the exact numbers off the top of my head, but our CEO at the time, when he started, we were around a $20 million credit union. That was 1997. So to 2003, we hadn't grown a ton. If I had to guess, we were in the $40 to $50 million range. And then at that time, there was a conscious effort and decision from our executives and the board of directors, who are all volunteers. I guess I kind of skipped that part.
That's great.
One of the key core differences of a credit union, and CSE is very much part of this, our board of directors, who basically guides the ship, if you will, they are all made up of people in our community. They have to be a member. And in order to be a member, you've got to live, work, worship, do something in Stark County.
Right.
So they are all here.
Wow.
They're not these wealthy stockholders
Wow.
that are business owners or, you know, millionaires trying to just build more wealth.
Right.
Yes.
Wow.
Generally, that's what you have at banks. Your
Absolutely.
investors make up your board of directors, and
Yep.
you've got to have a lot of money invested to then come in and say, hey, this bank needs to make more money, and here's how we're going to do it.
Right.
As a credit union, we're about helping people and saying, you need a loan, we're going to get you a loan. We're going to figure out a way to
Because we
make
are the
your life
people and we
better.
understand the needs of the
Exactly,
people.
right.
Right.
For the people.
For the
right?
people. We are the
So-
people. It's us. Right. Give them more loans because I need one too.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
credit unions are very unique, where we're the only, pretty much the only financial institute where our borrowers are the owners.
That's amazing.
So,
Yeah.
you know, that's a unique thing about
Yeah.
credit unions. The same people we service are still the owners of the
That's
credit
amazing.
union.
Yeah,
So-
you open an account at the
Yeah.
credit union, and one of the core philosophical principles is you are now a member owner.
Yeah.
So membership means something at the credit union. Now, not that you're going to come in as a member and say, I demand this, or I
Let me in the
you
vault.
have to, let me in the vault, or you must
an owner.
open a branch over in my neighborhood. You know, it's not
In my house.
it's
in a
not
branch.
that extreme, if
Yes.
you will, but you have a voice. You have a vote for our board of directors election that happens every year. You have the ability to come in and speak with our executives or a board member. Chances are you probably know one of them because we're here. We're living in your neighborhoods. We're working at the same places that you work. Well, I guess CSE employees aren't, but our board members are.
Sure.
We're going to the same churches, going to the same schools, attending the second grade Christmas concerts together. We're doing stuff like that. So that's a fundamental philosophical difference that sets us apart.
It's amazing.
But a couple years after 2003, when we became a community credit union, we made the conscious decision to change our lending model. Before, it was still pretty conservative, and it was difficult. We weren't comfortable lending to people with low or no credit scores. And we started working with a consultant whose whole philosophy on life in general, but lending and how you can lend to people that just need a chance changed. Wow. So it was, listen, you can take a chance on these people, and they're going to respect that and love that, and that's life-changing for them, and now they are going to become members for life. And there was a lot of tricks to the trade, if you will, but we have been doing that type of what's called high-risk lending for the better part of 18 to 20 years now. And it's life-changing for people. It's life-changing for our employees. It's been a game changer for our credit union. For perspective, I started in 2009, and we had adopted that business model, I want to say around 2005. So we had only had that business model for about 4 years. And when I started, we had grown to about $120 million in assets. We had 18-ish thousand members, and that was about 15, 16 years ago. Now, in 2000 and what year are we? 24. We just crossed $400 million in assets, and we serve almost 49,000 members, all here in our neighborhoods. And it might not sound like a lot of money because you look at some of these banks, and you've got Wells Fargo and Chase who are just hundreds of trillions of dollars in assets, and we're only 400 million. But there's some really nice pros that come with us being a small financial institution. As we grow, we continue to get resources that allows us to compete with banks, and credit unions work together to make real competition happen. So we're not competing against other credit unions. There's 15 other credit unions in Stark County. Most of us work together through different networks. So you can walk into another credit union. You could be in Spokane, Washington.
I've been there.
And
I probably was there using my CSE card. I'm sure
and you could walk into a credit union in Washington and say, hey, I'm a member of CSE Federal Credit Union, Canton, Ohio. And as long as you can identify yourself and know your member number, they'll say, we'll be happy to help you. How can we do that? Or vice versa. You can live in Washington and come to Canton and say, hey, I'm from Timbuktu Credit Union out in the Pacific Islands. I need to access funds. So, and you can do that at the credit union.
One thing, when we say compete, we're not competing with the bank to be bigger. We're competing for our members' service.
Yes.
We want to bring the best resources to our members. So if the bank is doing something on the tech side, as a credit union, we want to be able to bring you that same type of resource, but more affordable. So when we compete, we're not competing to be bigger than the banks. We're competing for our member service. And I just wanted to say
that's a great point. And we're never going to be bigger than the banks, and we're never going to have the resources that banks have. And we're probably not really going to be first in the market with the brand new flashy toy. That's just not us or who we are, and we don't have the resources. Crazy stat, if you took all the credit unions in the United States and added them together, we would still only be the third largest bank. Significantly trailing Chase and Wells Fargo. So the credit unions by nature just aren't that mega entity. Now you combine us all together, sure, it looks a lot better, but that's to Justin's point, that's not our goal. We're not out here to be the biggest and the best. We're here to be the best for you and a fair, affordable financial institution.
That's amazing.
So we talked about kind of who we are, where we've been. Recently, we've had a lot more, I shouldn't say a lot more, a couple more things that have happened to us that have been pretty significant milestones. And when we look back in another 86, 87 years, we're hoping that we can look and say, hey, 2023, 2024, those were big years for us. So for a long time, you had to be an educator to belong to the credit union. Then you had to live, work, worship, do something in Stark County, Ohio to belong to the credit union. Earlier this year, we actually were granted a change to our field of membership. The NCUA, again, coming back to them, who is our regulator, the ones that we answer to, We applied for and received permission basically from them to say, hey, we want to serve people up in Summit and Portage counties. We also want to serve people down in Tusk and Carroll counties. The same people live there that live in Stark County in the Canton area. People of modest means that just need good, fair, honest banking options that aren't going to fee you to death, nickel and dime you. Like, you just need a fair checking account. I don't need to pay $12, $15 a month to have my account here if I can't afford to have $100,000 on deposit. We don't do that.
Right.
As long as you got $5, you can come be a member of the credit union, do your banking. You don't have monthly fees. You don't have maintenance fees if you don't keep certain amount of money in the credit union.
Right.
And we can give you that loan. We can give you the credit card, the checking account, the debit card. We have rewards on all this stuff. We have all the same stuff that you expect, just way better and, and a lot more affordable for you.
Right.
So, yeah. And then we have people like Justin who are out in the community literally educating people on how do you make credit better for you? What is credit? What is a credit score? How does that impact me? How do I increase that or improve that? How do I budget money? Things that you just don't learn anymore.
So, one thing we always want to focus on, back in 1938, we were an educators credit union. So we always at CSE want to put the emphasis on education, because what does education do? It empowers our members. So we really make sure that we do that because we want to make sure our members are empowered to do better. Because when you know better, you do better, right?
That's right.
So
That's right.
We put a strong emphasis on education, especially in the community.
I think that's big because growing up in the community, I didn't have a lot of financial education, and I always think back, I'm like, I don't know if my parents did or didn't have it or just didn't know how to teach it to their children. And I think, my mom, I think she did have it because she was an accountant. She could do taxes. She did have some education, but I think we didn't have the resources for her to sit down and show us, because I don't, maybe it was embarrassing. Maybe it was like, how do I show my kids? She balanced her checkbook. Literally, she did our family's taxes. She worked at H&R Block at one point. But to sit down and show us how to manage something with so little may have been like, how do I show them how to work this with nothing? So we didn't have it. And I don't remember learning much about it in school. I always said I wish school had taught us more about it growing up. I said, all the things they taught us, what did I need to know about the hypotenuse of a triangle? Why did I need to know what Pythagoras was thinking about?
You haven't used that stuff?
I have not known A squared plus B squared equals C squared. I do remember that. I got straight A's in algebra, but it didn't matter, but I wish I had known more about budgeting, and I remember I took a statistics class in college and I learned how to do a spreadsheet, and I created a spreadsheet that I do my budget in. And I actually have given that spreadsheet to multiple people. My son's friend actually right now saves money really, really well. And my son is like, he said the reason he saves money so well is because of you. I'm like, what does that mean? He said, because you gave him that spreadsheet and he uses your spreadsheet to balance his budget and to save money every month. I'm like, that's amazing. But I didn't have those tools and I just made it up one day. All I do is put my money I'm getting every month in and I put my debits out and I have a ledger, and that's all it is. It's just a ledger. But for you to be going out in the community and educating people of various ages, I see you at schools and other things, and then even adults coming into the branch to understand that you are educating people, I think is so, so helpful, because knowledge is power and it stops you from being intimidated. So many people are making poor financial decisions, not because nobody wants to do harm to themselves or their finances or their credit. A lot of people are doing harm just because they don't know any better. They don't know how to balance their budget. They don't know how to stick to a budget. You said something earlier off camera, you talked about adults giving themselves an allowance. People don't think about that.
One thing that we pride ourselves on as a credit union is that we meet people where they're at. We don't wait for them to come to us. We let them know, if, when Tim and I got together and we talked about bringing workshops to our members, we know a lot of times transportation is a barrier. So we said, how can we do this where they can still get the information? So we took the workshops virtual. That way you can always get the information, no matter where you're at.
Very smart.
The information is going to be saved. So credit unions do a lot of this instead of doing a lot of this.
That's good.
We listen so we want to make sure that we're meeting your needs. It's not about the profit. It's more about our members. So
love that.
It certainly is something that, as we've grown and evolved as a credit union, staying true to those education roots it's a really important focus for us. And it's something that's not going to go anywhere as long as we're involved in the credit union. We know it's going to be a high priority to provide that education because of exactly what you guys just said. Nobody's going to be doing better without better understanding and knowing where they're at. So we actually got lucky in the state of Ohio. The Ohio state legislator, a couple years ago anyway, passed a bill that said you are required to have at least a semester's worth of financial education in high school before you graduate. Unfortunately, we know that not everybody takes that serious. Sometimes things just change, and maybe you do take it serious, but it's going to be 5, 6, 8 years before I go to buy a house or before I get a credit card or even maybe purchase my own car. So I don't really remember what I learned 8 years ago in high school or 15 years ago in high school. So us being out there constantly just trying to educate and re-educate, just make sure people are cognizantly aware of what's going on with your financial situation. It's a big deal and important to us. So
I love that. I love it.
Something else that we might hopefully look back on in another 50, 60, 80 years is back during COVID, we actually became what is called a CDFI, a community development financial institution. And you listen to those first two words, community development, that's exactly who CSE has been at the core for as long as we've been in existence. And as we've become a community credit union, developing community, building relationships in the community, educating, sponsoring, supporting, everything that we do is with our membership and our community in mind. And what the CDFI designation does is it's a difficult certification to achieve through the United States Department of Treasury. And they don't just grant these to every bank or credit union. You have to basically prove to them that you help people where other people won't. You have a desire to help unbanked people become banked, or underserved people who don't have great access to credit or who live in poverty situations that can't just walk into a bank and get a loan or assistance. You prove to us that you help these people, and then we will help you with various things. So we can apply for grants to help us fund some of these loan programs that go to higher risk communities or high risk individuals who just don't have a lot of opportunities. So that allows us to continue to do the things that we've built. And the really cool part about that designation is we didn't go out seeking it. Our regulators and our examiners came to us and said, you guys need to apply for this because you're already doing it. This can just open up so many more opportunities for you. So we did. And we had the whole thing got expedited because of the recommendations that we had along the way. And we had that designation in no time, and we're able to do a lot more great things for our credit union, for our members, and to build up our community. So
I love it.
So we've been able to grow big because of that. Or faster, I shouldn't say big, because again, we're still a small credit union. But we've been able to really accelerate our growth, which just, if you know anything about economics, the more resources you have, the more you can put back into your community and into your business, which just exponentially grows that much quicker.
So with that CDFI designation, that allows us to keep a pulse on the community. The most important thing that my job entails is listening to the community. What are the needs? What are they saying that they need resources for? And with that, we try to provide outreach programs to help them with the workshops, bringing resources such as affordable lending. We're looking into small businesses. We know that our community, like yourself, Lucas, has a lot of small businesses in the area that first need that education. You talked about a budget, and I like that because everything, I always tell people, it has to start on paper first.
I like that.
Starts on paper so you can understand where you're going, how it's going to grow. So that way we can take it to what kind of resources do you need? Education empowers you to do better. A lot of times we don't have the capital to waste. So the biggest thing that CSE tries to do is advocate for our members, whether we're going to the State House or going to Washington, to make sure that we're advocating for lower fees or providing resources for our community. That CDFI designation really helps with that. Leading into, where we're heading. So, talking about where we're heading for the future. We know our members want a little bit more tech savvy things from CSE, and that's things that we're working on, but we always want to make sure that we're spending our funds properly. And Tim will probably touch more about where we're heading and what CSE looks like in the future. You know, Jetsons.
Yeah, I thought we'd have flying cars by now.
That's not right. What are we doing?
But yeah, you're right. Certainly, as we've continued to grow, we've expanded to those 4 new counties, 2 to the north, 2 to the south. And we've got our eyes set on continued growth. We know that more branches will be in our future. We've got to do it smart. We've got to do it right. But that's what we're about: responsible growth, responsible use of our members' money. It's not our money.
Right.
The credit union doesn't own that money. Members do, and they could come in and pull it all out tomorrow. And don't do that, please.
Please don't.
Please don't. But yeah, we have to be good stewards of our resources that we've got, and that's what is going to allow us to do exactly what Justin's talking about, grow into these new counties, even continue to grow in Stark County. I certainly want to make sure people know that we're not going anywhere. We've expanded who we can serve, but our mission has stayed the same, and we are more committed to that now than ever.
You know, the one thing we always talk about, we want to make sure basically our community has that financial inclusiveness, and the main thing we're trying to focus on is the accessibility, the ability for all our members to be able to access our resources and to understand what we offer. A lot of times, you know, are you being fully banked? Are you using your credit union to the fullest? You know, are you just a member with a savings account? Well, did you know we had great affordable lending or great certificates of deposit? Did you know we had a great app with all these new savvy things coming out? So those are things that we want people to understand. We're always listening. We're trying to make things better for you, whether it's having a credit report monitoring system on our app or something of that nature. We want to make sure that we're bringing that to our members. So that accessibility piece is key. We want to make sure you know, Lucas, did you know you could come get a small business loan? You know, we want to make sure our members know that. And, you know, that's probably what's coming in the future. You never know. But we're constantly listening.
I love that. Even something like that. It's funny because talking to you guys over this time, those are things that I think about. I've even literally sat here because everything that I have in my business, I paid cash for. I worked really hard and at one mic at a time, one chair at a time, one couch at a time, as I was able to fund this business because I didn't know much about a small business loan. People got loans during the pandemic, and some people did it right, some people didn't. I didn't get any loans. It just sounded crazy because I heard some people did it wrong. And I was like, I'm not getting any loans. I don't want to get in any trouble. I don't know what's what. And so I just didn't do it. But you know, some working capital could go a long way, you know, but I just don't know about it. I don't think about it. Sometimes you got to hear those things about like, don't get in debt. It's scary. It's wrong and all that. And financial peace. And Dave Ramsey says don't get in debt, but there's good debt and there's good ways to leverage it to get yourself to the next level, especially in a small business. So, you know, I'll be in touch, but those are good things to think about, you know, because that also is allowing me to bring in staff. Like my team are working here part-time and doing other jobs and things. And our ability to we're impacting this community. And the more we have the resources, the more we're able to impact this community even greater. And all of this comes full circle. So it's really great.
We are exactly in that circle of life.
That's amazing.
Where our growth comes from your growth. And as you grow, we become a stronger, better financial institution that can do more for its members, whether that's you as an individual, as Lucas Tyndale, or you as a business, Lucas Tyndale Live Media. I just totally
Lucas
butchered
Live
your
Media.
name.
That's close. That was close.
I just butchered that. I apologize.
That's close.
But yeah, so it's all organic. You know, one other thing that I guess real quick, this really isn't that important, but you hear of mergers and acquisitions all the time. CSE, while we're open to other credit unions coming in and saying, hey, like, we're just a small fish. Can we join up forces with you? That's not our growth model. Our growth comes from members and members building that wealth and building their own assets. So we are an organic credit union. We grow when our members grow. We've had one merger in our history, and that was, some of you may recall, TNC Credit Union, who used to be the Republic Steel and Ford plant, or one of those. Anyway, their credit union, they had a devastating fire. They were only like a $9 million credit union, and they couldn't afford to rebuild. So they asked, and the NCUA expedited that process too, because they couldn't serve their members. So we actually literally rented a trailer and had it in our parking lot for TNC members to come and do their business at CSE.
Yeah.
Way before
Wow.
shared branching and stuff like that existed. Wow. So that's the only merger we've ever had, and it was out of necessity,
Right.
so that those credit union members could survive.
Yep.
But that's, I guess I wanted to point that out because
That-
there's a
that's
lot
amazing.
of financial institutions that we're going to do this, and our goal is to get merged and become whatever.
Tim said it best.
I love
Our members are our investment. You know, we invest in our members,
Yeah.
and when our members grow, we grow. So here at CSE, that's all we try to do. Make sure you guys are good,
Yep.
and we're good.
One member at a time.
Yep.
I love
So-
it. I love it. I love it.
So yeah,
Awesome.
So that's it.
All
That's
right.
kind of who we are, where we're heading, and there's a lot more to come on this podcast with you. Again, we're going to use this as a tool, basically, to continue that education, tell you how we're different, tell you how we can help you, and help you grow.
Yep.
So that's the goal, and more to come.
I'm excited about it. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Looking forward to more episodes. To all our listeners, all our viewers, we hope people continue to listen in, continue to check us out, follow on social media, follow wherever you listen to podcasts, and we'll see you next time.
We'll see
Thank
you.
you.
Take care, everybody.